We are back. It is another edition of Colts Corner with myself, Kevin Bowe, and Eddie Garrison across the way. Exited the Combine on Wednesday morning. We're up at our studio recording this right now. We will play the 27-minute morning radio show interview. We just got done with Colts General Manager Chris Ballard. We'll sprinkle in some anecdotes throughout that. Of course, you'll hear it right before we get to Twitter questions. Eddie, happy Combine week to you.
Happy Combine week. This is one of your favorite weeks, right?
Yeah, I think, people oftentimes get a little negative about the Combine. Spring is eternal. That's how I look at it. I'm like, hey, we're getting closer. And, I think we hear some answers. Maybe not concrete answers, but certainly glimpses of it. The Mooney Ward topic we'll get to, of course. And, Ballard is kind of fresh in my mind, Eddie, because we just got done with him. To me, a couple things, I guess, before we get started to tease a little bit of what you will hear coming up, I guess, in a few minutes. It does sound like they are open to, potentially restructuring and or cutting some of their own. Again, that's a very foreign thing to Chris Ballard, really, in his 9 years as GM. So I would argue that it is very necessary to do that in order to achieve your offseason goals. So, that's there. There's a little pushback. He was, they've been so good at drafting offensive linemen and so bad at drafting defensive ends, really, in particular. So I wanted to throw both those at him because, trenches is such a big focus to him. And the defensive end he kind of pushed back on. He threw out the sack stat from a few years ago. I mean, to me, and, when you're in a 3-person interview, it's not really the time to get very combative. But, you've had 5 top 3-round picks, Eddie, and none of them have made it to a second contract. When you look at, I am assuming Kwity Paye is going to be gone, and then, Ben Banigou, Kamoko Turi, Tyquan Lewis, and Terrell Basham, obviously, Latu's on a nice arc, and we'll see about JT Tuimoloau. But right. Defensive end has been a miss. And I think if you look up sack percentage or if you look up points scored in general, I think those points allowed, I should say, that kind of falls in line with it there. He offered the we'll see on Zaire Franklin being back. I think anytime you say that about a guy under contract, it certainly piques, some of my interest. So, again, we'll play that for you upcoming here in a little bit. But, Eddie, I just thought we'd go over mostly yesterday, and that would be Tuesday, the podium sessions. They do off to the side sessions as well.
Media scrums.
Yeah, media scrums with, both Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. So I'll start with you. Your, newsiest item, your biggest takeaway from what Chris Ballard had to say.
I'm at the point, I don't know if you're there either, Kevin, where I listen to him and it's like, okay, I mean, for me, it just pretty much goes one ear out the other for most of it. Like, until you start winning, anything you say to me is almost irrelevant.
Yeah.
Just because you've been here 9 years, going on 10, and we've already outlined the lack of success in the Ballard regime / era with the Indianapolis Colts. But if I had to pick one thing, it's that there is momentum, it feels, at least from how Ballard has talked yesterday and then again today with you guys on the morning show, that there seems to be some real positive momentum towards both Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce being back for the future. And the other thing that I have kind of gotten a grasp of is that based off of what Shane also said yesterday with JMV and based off what Chris said yesterday, it sounds very, very likely that Michael Pittman Jr. will be back. Now, is he back at that price tag is the bigger question, just because of how much he loves Michael Pittman Jr. talking about Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, both for that matter. So to me, that seems like the top 2 things is that seem to be going in the right direction with contract negotiations with those 2 free agents, and that Michael Pittman Jr. will be back next year.
Yeah, let's start with where you began, because yes, I do think there is a large chunk of the fan base that feels, I don't know if apathetic is the right word, Eddie, and how you described yourself, but let's just use that they don't care to hear from Ballard anymore. My tone or my direction of questions, I guess, this week with him at the Combine which was different a little bit than January at the end of the season when I think it's kind of true state of the union. To me, I've kind of accepted that he's coming back. And so it's like, all right, let's speak to 2026. Last year at the Combine, I did a little bit more of the, why do you feel like you're in a ninth year? What do you feel like your greatest accomplishment is? And I feel like just annually asking that, while fair, I think is a little redundant, and you're not really going to get anything out of the subject. So, I don't know, maybe it's a little peek behind the interview curtain, but, I kind of wanted to change a little bit of, maybe sprinkle in a little bit more of the, okay, let's see if we can get exactly 2026 answers. I think there's a balance necessary when you're evaluating people in those settings of short-term and big picture questions, if you will, with that. And I understand that fans will say, hey, same bullshit, different year.
Yeah.
To put it very simply. I do think compared to most, he is much more on the candid side. Mm-hmm. And I say that from a GM.
Are you saying compared to most of the others in his position in the league?
Correct.
Okay.
And again, some people don't care about that at all, but some people might. So let's get into news items specifically. I'm actually going to start with the Mooney Ward because I do think that was a news item from yesterday. All indications are that he will play in 2026. On paper, Eddie, Sauce Gardner, Mooney Ward, Kenny Moore II, potentially Justin Wally. That's a pretty impressive cornerback group.
Yeah.
So, again, when you look at it from that aspect of it, it's intriguing. Now, the question becomes, and we debated this a couple podcasts ago, just because Charvarius Ward says he's going to play,
mm-hmm.
can you unfortunately take him at his word? In an ideal world, I think you would have insurance at cornerback in some way, shape, or form this offseason, whether that's an $8 million corner, whether it's a third-round pick again at corner, something like that. I don't know, though, if you're in a position to provide proper insurance.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are some other more pressing needs. You don't have a first-round pick. Your cap situation's a little bit tight, depending on how they restructure and cut guys. So he's back, but it just doesn't – it's not like you're writing that in Sharpie, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's just unfortunate with how his concussions situations went last season. So, I thought, again, that was kind of the biggest news item. You bring up Pittman, and I walked away from the Combine thinking to myself, that's not a slam dunk, slap the backboard, he's back. Might be overreading it. Again, I still am probably in the stance of you try to restructure and bring him back. That's probably where I am. But I just don't get the impression that it is a 1,000% Michael Pittman Jr. is back with the Colts. Now, he can't be back at $29 million. I think we all agree with that. I think, honestly, Pittman would probably agree with that. So, where is that happy medium with all of that? I just get the vibe that maybe they're a little bit more content with what they have in the pass catching department.
Mm-hmm.
And, let's play that out. Pierce, of course, this is under the impression that Pierce is back.
Mm-hmm.
Pierce, Josh Downs on a contract year, Tyler Warren in year 2. I guess Doolin, but the thing with Doolin, I feel like, he expends so much playing special teams. He kind of gets some nagging injury stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even talking about the ACL from a couple years ago, just some nagging stuff. So I
soft tissue issues.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you. So that's kind of my vibe on Pittman a little bit there. Pierce and Jones, they definitely sound like they feel pretty positive and talks are going in that direction. Ballard is a little bit more maybe anti-franchise tag than I remember him being.
Yeah.
Now, and go ahead and share this. You brought up that you chuckled at the franchise tag store with Michael Pittman Jr. yesterday.
Yeah, so this wasn't on the podium. This was in the little media scrum with all the local media after. I forget what the exact nature of the question was, but it was along the lines of the franchise tag and if there's any, just getting a deal done before the tag window ends. Is that next week?
Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah,
Tuesday
on Tuesday. Yeah,
whatever it is.
And he shared that he's like, well, we've only used it once, and that was because Michael Pittman Jr. was flying back from Africa because he was hunting.
Yeah, I first off, that sounds exactly like something Michael Pittman Jr. would love to do. My guess is, again, the tag window is Tuesday, Eddie. Free agency then is 8 days later. So you have the 8-day window between you can tag guys to the start of free agency. And I believe, if I'm reading Ballard right, the thought process there is they thought they had a long-term deal done with Pitt. He obviously could not sign the contract because he was still coming back from the vacation. The franchise tag window was about to close. He didn't want to risk it. So he said, we're tagging you, and then we'll do the extension once you get here. But I can't afford for all of a sudden me not tag you, something to come up, and you then hit the open market and leave.
Yeah.
Because if I remember correctly, they then did the extension within kind of that 7-day, 8-day window.
Yeah, it was like a couple days later.
Right, in between the tag closing and the start of free agency. So, I guess that's it's a funny story. But B, it is a reminder of what we're about to enter here next week. Franchise tag closes on Tuesday. So we will get finality to that resolution. Did the Colts use it or not? Then they only can use on one of the two if they use it. Then we have 8 days for them to get at least one long-term deal done with the other guy, if not two. So,
or who knows, maybe 0.
That would be wild. But it just seems like that is first order business. Everything else falls in line. I still get the vibe that they feel like Jones is going to participate, definitely in training camp. So, that stood out to me. Still, the defensive focus is in the front. I would say more front 4, but definitely front 7.
Yeah.
But I'd say mostly front 4, mostly edge. And I could see them taking a swing.
Yeah, because then you say they need the primary focus is to get faster and younger up front.
Right. And again, it's difficult to do both. And he admitted that, getting younger is ideal, but it's not, Trey Hendrickson is not getting younger, I guess is what I'm saying here. I think they will try and take a swing. Now, what is going to be available? As we see the franchise tag get used, Trey Hendrickson, Adafa Owe, I feel like there was one more edge tag candidate around the league.
We talked to Charlie Clifford over in Cincinnati. He used to be at Wish TV.
Great human.
And he straight up told Jake, he goes, yeah, Trey's done here.
Right.
Like, they're not going to tag him. He's played his last snap with the Bengals. I was like, whoa.
And I caught that interview with you guys with them. Now, Duke Tobin, their GM, was much more vanilla, but again, we'll see how all of that plays out. Obviously, his position coach, Marion Hobby, from several years in Cincinnati, is now here in Indy. So I get the vibe, and I asked Ballard this question. It just seems like the DB emphasis from last year could be a little bit more defensive end. Now, it might not be 2 free agent signings, but again, can you double back with the day 2 draft pick coming up in April?
Yeah.
Linebacker, I'm still torn on how they approach Franklin under contract. We'll see for Ballard. And then Jermaine Pratt Jermaine Pratt, a free agent, who I think they liked what they gave him. Anthony Richardson, Ballard very understandably never went as far to say as the future is still here in Indy. So I expect Richardson to be moved. I don't know how it'll look, but I don't expect him on the Colts next season.
Was that James who asked him, Boyd, that asked him, do you see a future for him here? Well, and he said, I see a future for him.
It's funny because you've been at the combine, Eddie. You know how this works. There's 25 people in front of these podiums.
Yeah.
And it's not just our media.
No.
His first question was about Tyler Warren from, I think it was somebody distant. Or, Shane Steichen got asked a lot about being a first-time head coach by, other media from around the league that their teams hired first-time head coaches.
Yeah.
Like, I get why people ask those questions. It's a great availability to ask that stuff. But then the locals, we then get them off to the side for about another 5 to 10 minutes, which that I think is a time to expand on that. So James, in front of the whole, brigade, he asked that, and I'm kind of standing behind Chap, and I just noted, I'm like, I think I heard that right. I don't think he committed to, he said he's got a future, but James asked it more like a future in Indy. And so I said to Mike Chappell as we were walking over to the scrum, I'm like, we got to clarify that. And then James walked over. I'm like, did you hear that right? Like, are we all on the same page here? And then when, asked for clarification.
Yeah, Chap led that little media scrum with that thing.
Right.
That question.
We got clarity, and again, the clarity was doesn't sound like the future's here in Indy. So,
one other thing I think we should note, sounds like they're moving back, even in the second round.
yeah, I had jotted that down. They have a good chance that they will trade back. So, he's always been probably more on the joking side of, me, I always love to trade back. But that was rather committal from him. And it sounds like they're going to get a couple comp picks. I expect those to be late day 3.
Would that be for Quiddy? Or who would that be for?
No, comp picks from last year.
That's right.
Like, I'm trying to think who it would be. Flacco?
Will Fries?
Yeah, thank you. Fries, Kelly, yeah. Some of those. I think there was a point in time as a franchise, Eddie, when you're retooling, when you're rebuilding, frankly, where the trade back makes sense. Quantity over quality. And I understand Ballard's thought process in some of these trade backs. I just don't. When you draft 47 overall, man, so let's say you trade back from 47 to 65.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea what that would net you. But, one pick in the top 70? I just, it doesn't seem like something that makes a ton of sense, especially when I kind of look at the draft as 2 to 3 kind of real big shots added here. That was kind of everything Ballard related for me, Eddie. Couple notes on Steichen. He still will call plays. I was not surprised by that. It was funny. We were waiting for Steichen, and Sean Payton was at the podium next door, and he literally announced then that he was not going to call plays.
Yeah, Davis Webb is going to be the play caller for the Broncos.
Right, and Dave Canales, the Carolina head coach, who just made the playoffs, somewhat resurrected Bryce Young, he's passing it off to a first-time play caller, Brad Isaac, I think. So, it's interesting. 2 playoff teams, both passing that on.
Especially for Sean Payton, because he's always
done it.
Always
done it. Now, I'll echo what I've always said about Shane when this comes up, because fans ask about this a ton. Him and his play calling. I think one of his strengths, frankly, is as a play caller. And so if you strip that from him, now I have more questions about him as a head coach.
Yeah.
Because
to me, that goes back to, that's what you hired Shane for,
exactly.
was because his play calling.
Right. Now, I think there are some elements of Shane that he is growing as a head coach. I think when you talk to players on the team, they'll say, team meetings, for example, are handled differently. And I think will continue to be handled a little differently. Maybe not as long, frankly, as they were in year 1 or 2, where you feel like you need to throw all this information. Now it's, hey, can you be honestly, a guy who's adopted this more than anything is Kurt Cignetti.
Yeah.
He is. He runs that operation like it's the NFL. In terms
Simple
of
as more.
On field, and the team meetings are a couple minutes, and then boom, we're moving on to the next thing in the day. I think Shane, there's a little bit more of that to him. And, it's part of a first-time head coach. Okay, year 1's going to look different than year 4.
Yeah.
So.
And just the overall growth of your leadership style and you as a leader.
Sure. And now, again, the leadership question is a question that I did want to throw Ballard's way, and you'll hear that here in a few minutes, just about, so many of these captains are largely the same. How do you evaluate that? We did the Shane Steichen podcast, Eddie. What was that? Was that last week?
No, Chris was last week.
Okay.
Right? No. I have that backwards. Yes, we did Shane last week.
Okay, so we did, again, the wins and the losses, the good and the bad of it. One of the losses or one of the bad comments or bad stains on the resume you and I discussed is this is a team that has to win ugly better.
Mm-hmm.
And that might have been the thing he said the most yesterday was the need to win ugly. And I couldn't agree with that more. If you look at those stats, I believe it's if you look at, I want to say I viewed it as 20 points or less. If you score 20 points or fewer, I think the Colts are 3-17 in those games under Steichen.
Yeah, because I made the comment about 3-17.
Yes, thank you for that. Very well done by you. Houston, they've had 22 games, which is kind of weird. You don't think of Houston as this great offensive team, but yet they've only had 2 more games in the Steichen DeMeco Ryans era with 20 points or less. They are 8-14 in those games. And, when you add those up, hell, certainly a difference in 2023, who won the division and who didn't win the division. You think back to the first Houston game this year. I forget the final score of that game. For some reason, 20-16 is popping in my head because I feel like a Badgley missed extra point really impacted that game. But, that was kind of an ugly one. That was kind of a low-scoring game. You're not always going to have the video game numbers you had the first 2 months of the season. So I think winning ugly, that was one that made a whole lot of sense. He brought up the second half of the season and the inability to run the football. I know we touched on a little bit with late-season pods, Eddie, but, the lack of explosive runs that Jonathan Taylor was unable to produce is wild. I believe it was something to the effect of after the Kansas City game, I don't think he had a single run of over 15 yards the rest of the season. Think about that. 15 yards. And Jonathan Taylor had a million of those in the first 2 months of the year. And he doesn't have a single one in the final 2 months of the season. It's wild, and honestly, we should probably do more of a deep dive on a future pod. So that was also something that stood out to me from a Steichen standpoint. Anything more on your end?
No, nothing more to add on that. Do want to mention this for those in the local, Indianapolis area, or heck, if you're, I don't know, in Ohio or Michigan or whatever, and you want to come hang out with Kevin Bone for a little bit, Thursday, April 30th, 10:30 in the morning is our fan invitational golf outing. And right now we have an early bird special on 1075thefan.com from now until, when is this end? On Sunday or Friday? And Friday, $25 off per person or $100 off a foursome. A lot of things will go on. Check-in starts at 9. Kevin, you did this last year and had a great time.
Had a blast. Was on the 15th hole, hitting some drives. Great time. First off, we do our show-off site, which I love that. Legends, a great course just south of Indianapolis. So come on out. It's a fun day. I like the early in the year golf outing. Kind of gets you in the mode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A couple weeks after the Masters. So right before the start of the month of May there. So yes, that you can find that on our website under the events tab, 1075 The Fan.
Yeah, that's certainly one way to kick off the month of May. And kicking off the start of Combine Week, Kev, Chris Ballard today joined you, James Boyd, and Jeff Rickard.
Yes, so this was from Wednesday morning at the end of our show. Those are the voices that Eddie just laid out you will hear, alongside myself, Jeff Rickard, and James Boyd, chatting with the Colts general manager, Chris Ballard.
Joining us now, the man of the hour, Chris Ballard. It's always a home game when the combine rolls around, so you got that going for you. So he'll join us here as he sits down and gets mic'd up here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. He's always kind enough to do this every year for us. And as he puts on the headset right there, Chris, welcome back. It's good to see you again. I hope
good to see y'all.
Is there such a thing as an off season, like even 5 days or anything?
It's He put this mic on, so we're good. Now, when I moved in, so I was an area scout for a long time, and the good thing about being an area scout is you're on the road, but you're home. Like you're on the road, but you're home and you're working from home. When you move in the office, on the pro side, you're in the office. Like when it starts in July, we don't get off until after the draft. So it's a grind, but it's when you're doing what you love to do. I've never saw it as work, so I feel fortunate. But there's never a time off. There's not. There's just that's just the way it is. And I don't know if I could take. I don't know if I could take a lot of time off. I'm just so used to working. That's all I've done my whole life. So I feel fortunate and blessed to be able to do what I do and be involved every day.
Chris, thank you for the time. This time last year was a lot about defensive back when you chatted with us here. Do you view defensive line now in that light this year in terms of the all-season focus?
Yeah, you've got to – I think I believe you went up front. I've always believed that's been a core belief. And so there's no question. Every year we try to do the best we can to make sure we have a front that can win, because when it really shows up is later in the season, and that's when your depth shows up. So it is a priority for us here going forward.
Draft-wise, obviously prospects starting to talk to the media today. You guys have done an extraordinary job at drafting offensive linemen in your tenure. When you look at that position group specifically, really outside of round one, you have Why do you feel like you've been so successful?
I would tell you it was the hardest to learn. Okay, it just took years to learn what played in the league and then what was successful in the league. Being with Jerry Angelo, I thought he did a really good job. Bobby DePaul at the time, who was our pro director, and then going with Coach Reed and John Dorsey really kind of clarified everything. Okay, here's what we're looking for, and here's what succeeds in the league. You got to get a little luck sometimes where it falls your way, which we've gotten. But on the flip side of that, we've been able to identify the right traits in a player that can make them successful, i.e., Will Fries, who went on and, has had a heck of a career and as a 7th-round pick and done tremendous. So our group does a great job. I mean, we talk consistently about it, and it's always going to position that you don't ever want to go short because when the season hits, I mean, take quarterback out of the equation, the bigs are the hardest to find on the street. They're just not there, and that's why you've always seen us go heavy on the O-line, D-line. That's as the attrition through the season, builds up, and it does. I mean, every year. The team you start with in August is never the same team you're playing with in December. So you've got to have enough depth, and the bigs are the ones you always got to try to find and stay with.
Conversely, D-end has not had anywhere near that sort of success. Why, and has your evaluation of that position group needed to change draft-wise over the years?
Yeah, I don't, and you're right. We've not produced the one real disappointing thing for me is we've not found a guy that, is an elite rusher. I think we've had good rushers. I think Latu still is coming into his own. It takes time to learn how to rush in this league. And us not being in the playoffs has not been able to show kind of the world, how he plays and not getting that exposure. So I do think he has a lot of upside. And look, I don't want to take anything away from some of the guys. Kwity Paye played good football for us. Sometimes the expectations of a first-round pick, no matter if he's the first pick of the draft or the 20th pick of the draft, everybody think, okay, he's automatically going to be a 10 to 15 sack guy automatically, and that's not the case. I do giggle sometimes because I think we broke the sack record a couple years ago, and we did it without Freeney and Mathis, who were, in my mind, 2 Hall of Fame. One of them's already in the Hall of Fame. The other one should be.
Yeah. Chris, when you look back on last season, obviously you all had the 8-2 start, finished 8-9. You can look at it through 2 lenses of we were great the first half, not so great the second half. How do you evaluate the whole thing when it's a year-to-year league and your final record is 8-9? Well,
the one, Shane and I have talked a lot about this, and we've talked about it as a group, coaching staff and scouting, that we got to find a way to win, these tough ball games. We lost so many down the stretch that were, a play here, a play there, and injuries are not an excuse in this league. They're just not, they're going to happen. Injuries are going to happen, and you've got to be able to overcome that, and you've got to be able to get in a street fight sometimes and win the street fight. And one thing I've told Shane this most time, don't lose. Let's start with don't lose the game. Okay, if you look at our record, 8-2, and we were playing really good football. I think we were +9, and then you look at the last 8 games of the season. I think we're -9 or -10. So just turning the football over and not playing, taking care of the things that you have to do to win. We have got to improve on that. Without question, and it's hard. I don't want to sit here and say I don't think 8-2 is a mirage. I think we had a really good football team, but even if we'd have remained healthy, okay, everybody's healthy and we're going, you can't play and turn the ball over and do things that are not winning football. I don't care who you have. So we've got some improvement. Excited about the things we have coming back and the plan we have going forward. So we'll go from there.
Along those lines, Chris, what is the balance of believing in what you saw when you were 8-2 and then talking to Shane yesterday, talking to you over the years, knowing that you can't get too caught up in what you were because this league especially, it changes on a dime.
Yeah, and every year's different. every team's different. It's never the same. And I can't sit there and say, okay, look back, snap my fingers, say, okay, everything's going to be okay. We were 8-2. We're just going to go off that. No, we have improvement we have to make in a lot of different areas on the team. We got to continue to increase the depth of our team and the competition of our team, and then allow our guys to compete, and guys that are earning it, making sure they're getting on the field. But every year's different. This is a new year. We're excited about where we're going. But we got work to do. We do. And it's a bunch of work. And, between now and start of the season, we're going to work pretty tirelessly to get it done.
One more, and I'll pass it to Jeff. But talk about work to do. We talked a lot about Alec Pierce and obviously Daniel Jones. Another free agent to be is Nick Cross. How would you evaluate his season the last couple of years, and also what he means to this team and possibly trying to bring him back?
It's never a player's fault when you draft them at 20 years old. We choose them, okay? And so to what? Nick's I think he's still 24. He might have turned 25, but I think he's 24 still. So we drafted him at 20, and then we thrust him into trying to get him in there right away, and he just wasn't quite ready. And so to watch his growth has been really fun to watch. I've said this multiple times. Like, one of the really neat things about the job is watching guys mature and turn into men. They're not men when they come into this league. They think they are, but they're not. But to watch them mature, turn into men, into professionals, and that's one of the cool things about Nick. He does mean a lot. We have a lot of moving parts here. So we'll see how it works out. We've had talks with his representative. I know him well, and I'm proud of Nick, and I'm happy for Nick. And look, sometimes, like for players, and I tell them this when they're rookies, like, they're going to come a point when you and I don't agree and you don't like me because of finances. There's this big pie, and we can slice it up and give that piece of the pie. And somebody might be willing to give you a bigger piece of the pie. And if that happens, good, we've both done our jobs. We've done our job developing you, and you've done an unbelievable job taking the coaching and getting better and each and every year, and you deserve this opportunity. So we'll see what the future holds with Nick. I'm proud of him. I'm happy for him. He made it to free agency, and he's made it on a high note. So we'll see how that works out.
Talk about secondary. If Mooney Ward decides to come back, and we don't know that answer quite yet, but do you still get excited about the possibility of having everybody that you put together last year healthy and able to play for a significant chunk of a season? Talk to me about what you think of health right now for that overall group and what you think is possible.
Well, look, it's a very we're humming. It's a very talented group, and Mooney's a really special young man, and he's been through some hard things in life, okay? I talked to Mooney this morning. I called him drive. It's the best. His voice just sounded really positive and good of where he's at, all right? And he went to work. He knew he had to do some work, not just, on the injury stuff, but, also personally. He's had some hard things in his life that he's had to overcome, and that's not easy. And then being able to get, if Mooney's here, which, anticipating, yes, but if he's here and then, you got Sauce, when you have two corners that can play man-to-man, it helps the rest of it. It's going to allow Lou and the defense defensive staff to do some things that I think is really going to help us. And I think you saw some really good stuff when they were in there together. Like when the Kansas City game, like when they played, now they ended up having to play 95 snaps, and look, the more snaps you give Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, eventually they're gonna. I don't care who you got, they're gonna get you. But we played a lot of man-to-man in that game, and they held up really well for a long time. So excited about seeing, trying to get those two on the field together and seeing what they could do.
Getting live here at the Combine, Chris Ballard, Colts GM, is with us on Radio Row. Chris, you've largely had the same captains throughout this playoff drought. How do you evaluate the leadership of your football team when, A, the playoff success hasn't been there, B, the late season collapses have been pretty annual?
Yeah, no, and that's a fair That's a fair question. Shane and I we've had discussions about that because we have really. I mean, look, y'all go through our locker room. We have really good dudes. They care. They want to win. They do everything they can in their power to do the right things. We have to make sure that they're getting. I mean, leaders. We got to help them lead sometimes, if that makes sense. I mean, we all have growth to do. Even I have growth to do in that area, and they do. And we need to help them grow along the way too, of things that we want done to make sure that is getting spread through the locker room. I think Shane does a really good job now, but it just at this time, because of the results, it hadn't been what we wanted. So we've got to make sure that we're leading them in the right direction too.
You expect Zaire Franklin back?
We'll see. Love Zaire. I think, like, my relationship with him, he's very honest and he's very strong-willed. Darius was very similar, Leonard. And usually good players are like that. So we'll see how it plays out. When football, I'll tell you this, when football's over, Zaire Franklin's going to be a star in whatever he decides to do in life. He is smart. He is extremely mentally tough. He's everything you want in a player in terms of makeup. Are you
a fan of the podcast?
Needless to say, Zaire and I have had some discussions about the podcast. Look, here's what I do like. I love that he's passionate about what could be next in life. Like every one of our players, I want that for. But also, sometimes we've got to learn to temper some of the words that come out of our mouths.
Chris, you talk,
and that includes me. That includes me too.
That's growth right there.
No curse words this morning from Chris Ballard. Again, we have Coach GM Chris Ballard live from the Combine joining us here on the Fan Morning Show. Chris, when you look at Anthony's entire tenure here in Indianapolis, how would you evaluate it, number one? And number two, how crystal is his future here? And I get that you believe in him. You've been championing him for everything, ups and downs, and I've been guilty of criticizing you and him. But when he doesn't,
and Daniel,
exactly, yeah, all of them. I don't leave any clips. But my point is, when you're evaluating him, how do you, figure out what his future is here when you're also trying to re-sign Daniel Jones, and Riley has shown some things as well?
Yeah, look. You can never have enough good players at one position. All right, they might not be always happy about it, but you can't have enough good players. And look, it is hard to evaluate him right now. Anthony's still young. He is still young. I want to say he's 24 years old. All right, so the future's still in front of Anthony. The injuries always make it tough to finish to get a complete evaluation. And look, if you look at the history of some of these quarterbacks that have gotten hurt early in their careers and had some real struggles, but they come out the other side. It's kind of like I talked about yesterday about, you got to stand at the end of the edge of the abyss and not jump. He hasn't jumped, which is a good thing. I'm proud of him. He's had some unfortunate bad luck, but we'll see how it goes going forward. I know this. He works. I know this offseason he's worked. He's working with his guy down there that I think a lot of. And so we'll see what the future holds with him.
Speaking of that, what did you think of the late season performance of Riley Leonard?
It was fun. Look, it was fun to watch. The game wasn't too big for him, which is always number one thing you look at. Is the game too fast and too big for him? And it's not. And you're talking about a young man that played in a lot of big games in college. So that part really didn't surprise us because it wasn't too big for him. His ability to, he has worked really hard mechanically getting the ball out faster. He took to, internally our guys we bring a guy named Chris Hess who does some sequencing analysis on our quarterbacks. And he had some. It's a constant involvement when you're talking mechanics of quarterbacks. Like it's like a pitcher. They're always working it. And he took the information and worked with our strength staff really hard on things he needed to do with his sequencing. And it's getting better. And it was fun to watch in that Houston game. It all kind of come together. Now, like any young quarterback, you're gonna, you got to live with the ups and downs. But he's really smart. He's got really good poise, and he can create. Those are things that I think you saw in the games he played in. I thought to throw look, when Daniel got hurt, we all were at the game, you could feel kind of the energy just gets sucked. He came in the game and played well. If you remember, he threw the ball to Pittman on a back shoulder for a touchdown that, whether I agree with the call or not, it was PI. But still, in the moment of when, and he had just come in the game, that kind of gave us some hope. Okay, look, it's not big for him. He can make some plays. And then going into the Houston game that first half, that was their starting defense, and he performed well. But like any young quarterback, we got to work on the turnovers. Can't turn the ball over. And, there's some times where a play is dead, and you just got to understand it's dead. That's part of his growth. But excited about Riley and where he's going.
Do you see an extension for Alec as an either-or if Pitt is back?
No. I think we got it. We'll work through that. Plans can be a little – I wish there was you could just write on paper, okay, here's the plan. This is how it's going to go. This is the amount of money this guy's going to cost. And it fits into a perfect box. Well, unfortunately, that box gets determined sometimes by the market, all right, which it does. And so it's fluid. It's very fluid.
Would you say that to achieve the offseason goals, you might have to part ways with guys you've re-signed and or restructure, which is a little bit foreign for you?
That could happen. Yeah, that could happen. Here's the good news. Going forward, we're in very good cap and financial shape. Mike Bloom's done a really good job making sure that not only this year but, future years are set up in a way where, we're still open to do business. We've not ever boxed ourselves in to where we're hamstrung on what we can do.
Chris, you were pretty quick in the end-of-season press conference to back Daniel Jones, to say he can be your short and long-term solution at quarterback. Why do you believe in him so much, and do you think that commitment to him was already made? Because this is how we evaluate it. Hey, you gave up 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. You don't do that if you don't believe in your quarterback. So what are your thoughts on that part of it, and also just moving forward, trying to get him here?
Yep. No, I have a strong belief in Daniel. And, he's a quarterback that did. He had to go, he went to New York, had some struggles early, and I still thought even through the struggles he played pretty good football. And take him to the playoffs, wins a playoff game. They signed him to extension, and then kind of the wheels came off. So he is a quarterback that stood on the end of the abyss and did not jump. And when we got him, just his daily professionalism and the way he works, and then to go out and perform, gave you some confidence. Look, I can't sit here and say there's always going to be some doubt when it comes to injuries because, he's had some injuries. But there's been some other cases that we've studied and looked at where they've had some injuries too. Quarterbacks have, and they've come back and they've had long, successful careers. I'm willing to bet on that. And I'm willing to bet on, Daniel, just because of who he is, what he stands for, and his passion to play the game and to be great at the game. He's not just a 9-to-5 guy. I'll never forget where David Thornton and I were walking out of the building before the seat. We had just named him the starter about a week before, and we're walking out of the building about 8:30 at night, and Daniel comes walking back in the building with some food. I said, "What are you doing?" Because I'm getting ready, for our first game, and I got some things I need to finish up. He'd gone to eat, then he said, I got to come back and finish this stuff up. So, no, I'm willing. You bet on a guy that that he's going to come out the other end the way we want it to happen.
And then, Chris, you're going into your 10th season. I was going through Google, and you looked a little younger back then. I guess we all did. I think I was in high school or whatever, or college.
See this? Hey, you don't have that. You know why? Because you don't have any stress. All this gray. See the difference?
They're telling you about
no, but you got that fit.
Yeah,
but you got that fixed.
Yeah, come on
I can't dye this because it's come out gray. And if I dye it, everybody will give me crap for it.
This is why I don't
look,
shave.
it's starting to show up on you. You got about and look here, and let me tell you something, James. Next time I see you, they better not be black.
Yeah, no.
Isn't Urlacher your guy?
Oh,
Can he help you out?
Oh no, he's no doubt.
But along those lines, and jokes aside, you say you always feel the pressure to deliver. Going into a year where, for the first time in your career, going to the final year of your contract, does the pressure change at all throughout your experience? Does it change you at all when you're going through a job like this where every single thing that you do is going to be evaluated, judged, critiqued? I'll probably do it myself again this week. Like, how do you handle that and deal with that, knowing that you want to deliver so badly and you could be running out of time?
Yeah, like the time thing, I don't get stressed about that. I'm passionate about, like when I've had I'll tell you this, I've had 4 jobs really since college, okay? 5 if you count Hitchcock Junior High. But Kingsville, where I was fortunate to learn a lot, Chicago, Kansas City, and here. I've been really blessed. And every place I've left, it has been hard. Okay, and why? Because I invest in people, and I don't. I've never seen it as just a job. It's about the people in the building, connecting with the people in the building, and caring. And every place I've left, I've had tears because of it. And one day it'll happen here in Indy. All right, sooner or later. I can't tell the future, but there's nothing more that I want than a win for the fans of this city. They deserve it. We have great fans, great people. I love the city. I love the way, look, they're respectful. I know on social media they're not respectful because they're too chicken. Come say it in person. Can you blank? Did you blank that?
Mark's got you back. Got it.
But saying that, we've got unbelievable fans, and nothing more I want to win for them. And we're going to every year we put every bit of our effort into doing that. It's hard to be in the arena. It's not for everybody. Like, it's not this when you work in a profession where everything you do is going to be scrutinized, right or wrong. That's just what we do. And I'm going to tell you, like, for my children, it's been like, this has been a cool thing for them, kind of a cool outcome, because they've seen the criticism I take, and of course, look, it hurts them, but they have figured out that, I tell them all the time, don't ever let another man walk with their dirty feet in your mind. Okay, do the best you can do at anything you're doing, and don't for 1 second look back and regret anything that has happened along the way. You can't please everybody all the time. There's nothing more I want than being able to celebrate with our city downtown. And that's still the vision, and that's still the goal.
All right, last thing for me, I know that you and Rick Carlisle have each other's backs. He's led back and forth with the NBA over the last 24 hours. Anything you got for Adam Silver of the NBA today on the Pacers?
Come on. Look, I don't know enough about it other than I love Rick Carlisle and I love the Pacer organization, and I think they're freaking really good at their jobs.
I love it. You're getting the good job out of
Connie. I know Matt he knew I was wanting to give an answer too. They can't find me. I mean, Silver can't find me if I tell them they screwed him for freaking finding him $100,000. I don't work for the NBA, and I never will. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, they screwed him. I mean, I know Rick. He's got integrity. I know the organization. I shouldn't. Matt's back there shaking his head. Anyway, we're good.
We appreciate you coming by. We do. Thanks for the time.
Thank y'all. I appreciate it.
So thank you to Chris Ballard again for that. I think I kind of shared at the start of the podcast kind of where my thought process was in regards to, that interview and, maybe not as many of a, whatever. Why do you deserve X amount of years? Like, I feel like we've asked him that endlessly. And maybe there is a little apathetic element of myself, frankly, Eddie, that's like in there. And it's like, when you hear Ballard, like if he wants to go on the soapbox, he will.
Right.
You heard him there. Go on.
Yeah.
So I don't think he needs to be led down that path too much.
I thought he did yesterday on the podium there when he was asked about why young quarterbacks fail.
Right. Oh,
or what derails them or something like that.
As soon as I was asked, I'm like, I could probably go get some coffee and come on back because I know where this is going to go there. So, again, some stuff that I agree with, some stuff I disagree with. I think I've touched on that throughout the podcast.
I will add something that James Boyd asked in here that had not been asked either at the end of the season or in the local scrum or at the podium yesterday. And he asked about Nick Cross. And that's the first time we have gotten something on the record with Chris. And to me, when you hear, the first thing I tell players when they're rookies about, the slice of pie. And if you embrace what we do here as coaches, like I will pay you. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a time where you're mad at me because I may not give you the money that you feel like you and your agent are worth. And, if you hit free agency and there's another team out there, that just means we've done our job in developing you and you've done your job in, embracing the coaching staff and listening to what they've had to say on how to get better as a football player. And if you leave here to go somewhere else to, get more money, I cannot say that I blame you. And to me, that just goes back to what you have talked about a lot. It's just you don't know how much money you can tie up in two safeties when you have to pay Alec Pierce, you have to pay but Daniel Jones and some of these other players that are already underneath contract.
Yeah, and let's go over that. I'm glad you brought up Cross, and I was glad James asked that, Eddie, because I tweeted out the other day, like, can you give another, I think I used the word big, can you give another big safety contract? And someone replied with big, what do you think Nick Cross is going to get? If you look at safety money in the NFL, anything over about $4 million is big safety money.
Yeah.
I was looking at it the other day, Eddie. I want to say there were 2 teams in the league, out of 32, of course, 2 teams in the league that had starting safeties each making north of $5 million. So again, anything in that area, 4, 5, 6 million, boom, like you are all of a sudden in kind of rare air for the safety money. So that's where the Colts would be if they were to re-sign Nick Cross. And can you be there when you are paying a quarterback a notable second contract?
Mm-hmm.
Now you're paying big money at left tackle. Now you're paying big money at wide. Now you're paying, big money at corner. Like now you're starting to pay. So that would be the question that I would have.
Yeah. I was kind of just looking. I was like, who even is the highest paid safety? I was like, oh, yeah, Kyle Hamilton, duh.
And isn't Xavier McKinney pretty high?
Hamilton 1, Kirby Joseph 2, Antoine Winfield Jr. 3, Derwin James 4, Buda Baker 5.
Oh, no. So Xavier McKinney's not.
Xavier McKinney is 3, 4, 5, 6. He's 7th now.
Got it.
At 23.
Did you say
no, sorry, 16.75 a year.
You said 6'7"?
No.
6?
No.
7?
No. Okay. What's your obsession with that now?
Should we hit some Twitter questions?
Yeah, let's do that. We will start with Eli. Crazy question of the day. If it comes to the last day before the end of the franchise tag and you still have to sign Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce, who do you spin the tag on?
Boy, that's, the easy answer is say you would spend it on a quarterback, right?
That is the easy answer.
What's easier to find? Now, obviously, financially, it's $20 million north, and you got a guy coming off of torn Achilles, so that's where it is difficult on that end. I don't know if I'm just yet married to the Daniel Jones as your franchise quarterback, but I understand this is the bed you've got, and sometimes you just got to lay in it. So, I would. Part of the answer, Eli, would depend on what is the market and how competitive is it for these two.
I mean, the market for Alec Pierce is drying up because George Pickens got tagged.
Which, again, some might counter and say, well, it's opening up because now Alec Pierce is viewed as the top wideout
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so it hasn't dried up. So it's got
the market itself is dry. The
other wideouts.
Yeah,
I got you.
The pool is drying up.
Yeah,
but
not teams that would have interest.
Yeah. Because Pickens got tagged, and there's already been rumors that Pierce can get around $30 million annually.
Yeah, so I think that would play into my answer a little bit. You know, obviously quarterback is quarterback is quarterback is quarterback. It's the most important position in sports.
And the tag for a wide receiver is what, $28 million?
You know, so you're talking about a $20-ish million difference there. I don't know. I might try to be contrarian and still say Pierce, but a little bit that just has to do with Achilles. You know, my general thoughts on Daniel Jones in terms of the back of the baseball card, back of the football card, and his injury history here, and that being tough to ignore.
Next is Z-Palm. There's been a lot of discourse on what to do with some key free agents or players with expiring contracts. But to me, it seems pretty simple. Chris Ballard needs to simply pull each guy into his office and ask them if they still have their juju. If the answer is yes, then they need to come back, plain and simple. Thoughts?
Gosh. Every time I hear the word juju now, I kind of squirm a little bit.
You don't think about Smith-Schuster?
Yeah, Juju Brents, honestly.
Good call.
Yeah, the whole Juju thing. It just, I know we're now getting into it. You know, it's a question that, Seattle asks Pete Carroll a few years ago, or New England asked Bill Belichick a few years ago as they move on there, or whatever, some of these college basketball coaches that maybe don't want to live in the era that we're in there. So what I am curious about in regards to this general question is the thing I just asked Ballard there to end the interview you heard. Do you feel like you have to part ways with some of the guys you've re-signed to accomplish what you need to?
Right.
You know, because again, whether it's Pittman, whether it's Franklin, whether it's Kenny Moore, you know, not all those I think are the same case study. But is that something that you feel necessary? So very interested to see how that aspect goes. Because again, we've asked this about Ballard over the last, 18 months. What needs to change? What will be different? He said spending in free agency last year. And we saw that come to fruition. He really didn't say anything about the draft.
Right.
And the draft pretty much went normal for him. Now, again, the question becomes parting ways with your own. That would be very different for him. Is that something we see come to fruition here, really starting any day now? This is when you do it. Miami had the big purge. You know, over the next, deadlines, obviously spur action. 2 weeks from today, the official, start to the new league year. So in the next 14 days, this is when we're going to find out.
When he said at the start, I think it was at the start of your interview with him, he said, I like where we're going. Where is it that they're going?
In regards to the whole team?
Yeah.
I think, again, he continues, and Shane's in the same boat. They continue to be very bullish on what they have, makeup-wise. What they have from I think what they found in Daniel Jones, if I can speak on behalf of them, I guess, that to me is where I think they're at. I think their offensive line, they still are very bullish on. Their secondary that we went over kind of on paper, particularly corner, they still, kind of view it in that light there. So, we got in this debate on the show, actually, right before Ballard came on, of how close are they? And my eyes kind of started to scan the room. And for those unfamiliar with how Radio Row is over at the Convention Center here in downtown Indianapolis, you have about 60 stations, podcast teams set up there. And so you're looking around the room, and all of a sudden my eyes see Kansas City, and my eyes see Baltimore, and my eyes see Cincinnati. And I think to myself, we're debating how close the Colts are. There's Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Caribbean in January. There's Jackson and the Ravens on the beach in January. There's Burrow and the Bengals on the beach in January. You don't think those three franchises with those three quarterbacks aren't saying the same thing?
Right.
And that's what makes it difficult for me to I think the NFL, first off, is the ultimate league that tests you annually into how close you are. It's very difficult to fall out of bed and win 10 or 11 in the NFL. So that angle is there for me as well. And then I keep on coming back to this. The season obviously started off really, really well, But man, at the end of the day, you still lost the division by 5 freaking games.
Yeah.
5 out of 17.
Mm-hmm.
And you lost the wild card by 3.
Yeah.
So it's not just that, boy, that kick goes in against Seattle or doesn't go in against Seattle. Well, yeah, maybe not. We don't know exactly how that would have played out for you. I mean, that would have been 1 game, but okay, that now becomes 4 and becomes 2. Okay, what other game are you going to point to? You're going to flip a Houston game? Still, even if you flip a divisional game, it's still, isn't all the way you into the postseason. So
let me ask you this in return to like the debate on how close the Colts are. How close is the Colts defense to Seattle, Denver, and some of those other elite groups? Because I'm not trying to be that guy, but I mean, Daniel Jones is not Mahomes. He is not Allen. He is not Burrow. He is not Lamar. He's not going to will you to a ton of wins. And so the recipe for them to win games is by having a top 3, top 5 defensive unit to where that defensive unit can help bail you out if the offense doesn't have it on a day to go out there and score a ton of points.
Yeah, I don't see the current makeup of a team capable of winning ugly enough. Now, on paper, I can get intrigued by the secondary. But, I'm still front 7. Okay. The player you're most confident in the front 7 is who?
Boy, I don't know. I want to say DeForest Buckner, but with that neck surgery,
I can't say Buckner. I would say Grover Stewart would be my first answer. My second might be Latu. Necks and 31-year-olds and 6'7" dudes that have had back injuries, they just start to scare me, man. They just do. So that's where I've got to see how the next few weeks are going to play out and what the makeup looks like.
Yeah. 2 questions left. Colton would like to know, what do you do if you are Chris Ballard and Ty Simpson is sitting there at pick 47? Make calls around the league to see who wants him?
Is Ty Simpson good?
I don't know. He played severely banged up there the last month of the year.
Boy, who is that second quarterback? Boy, that's a tough one. Boy, Colton, I can listen to the question if the regime had changed. If the regime had changed, quarterback's on the table, anywhere. But the regime's not changing. And, again, are you in a position to be patient? You can't draft a quarterback at 47, right?
I don't think so.
No chance in hell. I'd be stunned there. So, yeah, not when you've decided to run it back.
And then the final question for today's edition of Colts Corner is from Mason. 2 weeks after Mr. Irsay's death, the Colts decided to move on from Morocco Brown. I assume this was a Carly Irsay-Gordon call. Was there any clarity from the team on why that decision was made, and how does the Colts draft and scouting process change now that they no longer have a chief personnel executive? I know he was one of the loudest voices to draft Anthony Richardson. I'm only speculating, but was he the fall guy for that pick? Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought his contract was up. And they just didn't renew it. I thought that's where that was. I didn't think it was I
believe you are correct on
anything
that.
like that.
And I think, it's interesting. The Colts have retained a lot of their own. We just saw the coaching staff get announced earlier this week. Of your top, 15 coaches on staff, the only one different is defensive line. And Charlie Partridge wanted to go to Notre Dame. It's not like the Colts wanted him back, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
So, you literally made 0 notable staff changes. The only guy that's really changing of somewhat note and it's behind the scenes is, the old game day, whatever, the guy that's deciding on, when to challenge, and the guy in Shane Steichen's ear, for example. So, the Colts have had little turnover scouting-wise, really within their scouting department.
Yeah.
They've had very little in the Ballard era. Fall guy, it's kind of weird. If you are some of these people within the Colts operation right now, you're grateful to have a job in professional sports, of course.
Absolutely.
These are one of 32. But also, do you want to hang on to a sinking ship? I think that is something that you see. Buzz Williams in college basketball comes to mind. He stays in these jobs for 4 to 5 years. Does just enough. And then buzzes right to the next one. It's is that the way to go? Of like, you don't stay too long to
it's like the queen bee finding her new hive location.
Yes, very, very well said there. That would be, again, kind of a somewhat serious question I have of like, if you are some of these assistant coaches.
It's like Dennis Schroeder of the NBA.
Sure.
New team every.
If you have the opportunity to move and maybe restart, or I should say, regrow the leash, if you will, get a new leash. Is that entertaining to you at all?
Because he didn't sign anywhere, did he?
Morocco Brown?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe not. I think last I heard a consulting role. Now, to be fair, the drafting scouting contracts are usually a May thing. So, this draft cycle, does he get through and then, does he join somewhere after the draft is here in May? By the way, are you a Mr. on the owner front?
I believe so.
You are?
Yeah. I've always been a Mr. or Miss or Mrs. or
right, with your
ma'am
friends'
or
parents,
sir.
but are you with like people that are rich? Because you're rich, we call you Mr.
Well, I just view that as a sign of respect.
Mr. Gates, Mr. Cook.
Yeah, so like if I met your dad, I call him Mr. Bone.
Yeah, that's fair. So we go in Mrs. Ursay Gordon? Or no?
I don't. That's a great question. I feel like everyone just calls her Carly.
Right. And I mean, I'm like, I don't know. We're probably like 10 years difference.
How soon until we start calling her Sig?
Well, yeah.
Mrs. Sig?
Yeah.
How you doing?
You go there for the acronym. You've got a show to start with Jake Query here in about half hour. He's Eddie Garrison. I'm Kevin Bowen. We'll be back next week recapping the full NFL Combine. Everybody have a great week.